Okay, we're live. Haya, how's it going?
Very good. How about yourself, Rosa?
I am doing well. Thanks for joining. I know you're busy as well, so
Thank you for having me.
of course, appreciate the time that you put in. So the real reason for this was really to ask some, deep, insightful questions and spark some, interesting conversations that we don't have a lot during our day-to-day lives, right?
Mhm.
So I'll just get right into it. What is your favorite movie and why?
One of my favorite movies is The Great Gatsby. Have you ever watched it?
Yeah, I like that.
I know it's based on a book, but I haven't watched the book. I haven't read the book personally, but I watched the movie, and it's one of those movies that just, they strike me.
Mhm.
It's just a feel good type of movie, but also there's a lot of life lessons in it. So by that I mean, someone who's you see them at the beginning of the movie, Mr. Gatsby, at the beginning of the movie, he is
Mhm.
portrayed as this rich man who is very selfish or, always has those lavish parties. But then towards the end, the perspective on that character completely changes.
Mhm.
He's basically a person who's just madly in love with someone who's trying to get their attention, right? So it has like a very interesting life lesson, but at the same time, as you're watching the movie, it just feels good at some points. And that's why I really like it.
Interesting. Yeah, and it also
Yeah,
does show that he's human, in the beginning everyone
exactly.
sees him as this like superhero, mysterious guy. No one knows how he's actually making his money and things like that. By the way,
Exactly.
did you watch the one with Leonardo DiCaprio or the
Yeah,
earlier one? Okay, that
the
one.
one with Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah,
Cool. The book is
yeah,
really interesting as well. I really recommend.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's definitely on my to read.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
usually books are better than the movies, and
yeah,
this was the
yeah.
case, here as well. They
Right.
made us read the book in high school, like in 12th grade, which I really
Hmm.
enjoyed.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, Great Gatsby. Now, what book would you recommend to a friend?
So I was kind of torn between two books. So I think I'm gonna say both books.
Okay,
So one of them is The Alchemist
okay, that's a good.
by Paulo Coelho,
Mhm.
and then the other one is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Mm, okay, quality. That's a good
Yeah,
book. Yeah,
yeah, it's a very good book.
I learned a lot from that actually. I haven't fully read The Alchemist. I have this bad habit. I start books and then I leave them. I come back to them again.
Right,
But
right.
How to Win Friends and Influence People, that's a very good book. I read
It,
that in 12th grade as well, just like
yeah,
learning how to communicate and learning how to, or actually understanding people better. It's definitely one of those classics.
exactly. And what's interesting about it is that it was first published in 1937, I believe,
Mhm.
which is almost 8 decades ago. But most of the principles, or all the principles, are very much relevant today. So it's just, human basics, and it seems so simple. Most of the principles, as you read them, they seem so intuitive, but when it comes to actually applying them, it's like, it's not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah,
And it's beautifully written, the way that Dale Carnegie kind of writes it, the tone and his conversational language just makes all the difference. It feels like he's actually talking to you.
it does. And what I appreciate about the book is the fact that it explains the points through different stories, you know,
Exactly.
which is interesting because it sticks.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Okay.
what was also interesting is that after every chapter, he summarizes the entire chapter in one sentence.
Oh
It's
yeah, I forgot
just
about that. That's also
just
another.
amazing how like an entire chapter could be summarized in one sentence, just to make it that much easier to remember and that much easier to apply.
For sure,
Yeah.
agreed. And what about The Alchemist? You want to say something?
Yeah. So the Alchemist, I think it's more about the whole, striving for for your potential and trying to figure out what values you care about the most and what's your journey to self development. And it's less about getting to your destination, it's more about just enjoying the journey and getting there, and always exerting the effort, even if it's small, to do something better, to learn something new. And The Alchemist, again, it's an entire novel and it kind of goes through that. But if you just look at it from a perspective of self-development, there's a lot of lessons embedded in there. And one of the quotes in it that I definitely enjoyed is the possibility of having a dream come true that makes life interesting. So just kind of living with that possibility is kind of just it gives a lot of motivation, a lot of energy just to go through anything.
I like the way you explained it. I definitely think I need to read that book again and actually finish it, because the way that you said it, I think I need that right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. What is your current ikigai?
So actually, I had to Google what that meant. So my understanding is kind of like purpose of life or something.
Yeah, it's like a Japanese term, and it means a reason for being.
Yeah. So my current one, I think it's more about exploration and trying to figure out what is out there to work on, whether it's, trying to figure out what is it that I can do, and also how can I help others. Just exploring at this point in life rather than trying to fixate down on one thing.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a good point in your life to do that, right? Because you're in your 20s, you're trying to explore different avenues. You don't just want to be locked up and locked down by just one thing,
For sure.
So that's cool. Glad to hear that. What new skills are you learning?
Painting. So I've always loved to paint, but most recently I've gotten a bit more into it. You want to see one of my paintings?
Of course, yeah. Let's see.
Okay. So I prepared. So there's this one.
Oh, cool.
Me trying to
a lot of colors.
Yeah. Colors. Yeah, and then there's this one. It's kind of a sketch, really, but it's more realistic.
Oh, okay. I see the eyes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Eyes are such a unique and interesting element of the human to put on canvas.
Yeah.
It says a lot. It shows and expresses a lot, depending on how you actually like draw it and everything too.
Yeah, and it's very intricate. Like, it doesn't seem like much, but it's very intricate.
It's very intricate. It's like you can almost see the whole universe in your eyes,
Exactly.
If you zoom in, it just really resembles the way like the galaxies look, and it's crazy. So you've gotten into painting, and it's definitely therapeutic, right? Like you kind of get into that state of flow when you really focus on that one thing. All the other problems or noise that you have in your mind kind of disappears, right?
Exactly. And then it feels good as you're painting. You're also, especially when you're using like actual paints rather than sketching, you can experiment with different colors and kind of, see how different colors mix together. And it's very therapeutic, even just the stroke of the brush, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's cool if you have like an entire room, if you can actually like cover the entire room with like, canvas material, and you just go crazy, just make a mess. And yeah, that's cool.
I see a lot of paintings behind you. Did you paint those?
That's actually a curation of my mom and my paintings together. So some of them
nice.
are for mom, some of them are for me, and then we just
it's beautiful.
Mom, yeah, thank you. My mom is really into painting, so she kind of inspired me to start experimenting as well. That's
right.
Cool. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so what is your biggest fear?
Oh, that's a very deep question.
Yeah, we gotta get into it,
I guess, I don't know if it's my biggest, but a fear of mine is being static. Not achieving something and not, doing something and improving. That's definitely one of them.
Being stagnant, right?
Yeah.
That's because then at that point you really hit your roof and you're not really like growing anymore, right? You're not making any more progress, right?
Exactly.
And yeah, that's a good point. It's almost like complacency. You just stay in one place and you don't really want to like make more progress. And if you look at nature as well, like if you look at a pond, right? Or let's say if it's a pond that's just closed up and water is not flowing into it, over time it becomes stale, it becomes stagnant, it becomes very dirty. But a river, it's like moving,
Yeah. And the important thing too is to not be stagnant on different aspects of life, right? So it's not only about career, but even, just yourself, your self-development, trying to see what's out there in nature. So always trying to do something rather than just staying still is important.
Definitely. No, I agree. So to that point, how do you deal with your insecurities?
So it's tough, right? But I think one way is to pinpoint them,
Okay, yeah,
to
acknowledge them,
actually
understand them, yeah.
realize what they are and kind of deep dive into them, and then try to understand why. Sometimes it's more difficult than others, but understanding why and then rationalizing them in your head, and then trying to make some sort of an actionable action plan, something that's easy enough to work on, not asking for like rocket science or anything, but just something that's easy enough and baby steps. And at some point it's fine to accept your insecurities. It depends on how severe they are and how much they impact your life.
Hmm. Interesting. And yeah, like you mentioned, I think that the first step is to actually acknowledge it and
Yeah,
understand that it's there instead of trying to deny it. Otherwise, you're not really helping yourself. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot in the long run, right?
exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are some red flags for you in relationships? It can be intimate, friendships, anything like that.
Lack of communication
Okay, like a
is
community.
a big red flag. So not having a two-way communication that's fruitful
Mhm.
is a big red flag.
That's yeah, that is the red flag. It's a good point because if there is no communication and if there is no dialogue taking place, both parties actually expressing what's on their mind, then at some
Mm-hmm.
point it's just gonna like either build up into resentment or one or the other person is gonna implode. You want to communicate. That's
And then the other part is you would never understand who the person in front of you really is. If you don't really communicate, you'll never really know what they like, what they don't like, what their personality is like, if most of the conversations are very surface level.
yeah,
So, yeah.
agreed. And I think that's actually one of the main um, patterns that you see in modern relationships because of social media and dating apps and everything. People are
Mm-hmm.
starting to communicate less and they're putting a lot more value only on, let's say, hooking up or only having shallow relationships, or so that's something that's definitely a
Or
red
what they portray in social media and portraying that perfect life and all that, right?
yeah.
Rather than truly digging deep into what does that relationship or friendship really means.
Definitely, yeah. So social media definitely fuels the fire when it comes to shallow relationships. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like the main reason for it, but it definitely is fueling that,
For sure. Yeah,
and
for sure.
fueling insecurity, and then it's just a whole incentive system behind
Mm-hmm.
social media is created and structured in such a way that you you don't really want to create deep relationships. You want to seem very
Right.
cool and glamorous on the surface, and that's it. You know. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to, or if you were to have lunch with someone dead or alive, who would it be?
Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great. Okay.
Yeah.
What would you guys
Uh,
talk about?
I'll talk about his leadership style. I'll talk about his mindset, how he thinks. I really want to know how that man thought. So he within a span of around 10 years, he conquered most of the world. Right? And
Yeah.
that's by the age he was 30 by that time. So by
Mhm.
the age of 30, he had already conquered most of the world. And it's incredible, right? Just leadership style, how he changed history, the course of history till today. If
Mhm.
Alexander the Great wasn't alive, the world as we know it today wouldn't be the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just kind of getting into the strategic mindset that he had, how his upbringing affected him, and how he really thought about different different strategies for conquering places, or apart obviously from all the violence of it. It's just more the strategic
Or
side of things that I'm so curious about.
yeah, yeah. His mentality and his leadership style, basically.
Exactly.
And actually,
Yeah,
you're from Egypt, right? He has a city
that's
named after him, right?
exactly
Yeah.
Alexandria. Yeah,
Alexandria. Well,
that's
how
correct.
did how did that happen? Like, why did they name it after him?
So he I don't know why they named him after him, but I believe he's the one who set it up initially.
Okay.
And then at that point, after it was set up, it's right on the Mediterranean. And after he set it up, it was basically the center of knowledge in the ancient world. So it had libraries, it had all sorts of wise people there, scientists, and so forth. So it was basically anyone who wanted to learn anything would have to go to Alexandria to learn. And it just held a lot of the knowledge from the ancient world, whether it was from the ancient Egyptians or from other civilizations. It was all translated and it was kept there in a library. But unfortunately, that library burnt down, I think, later on. But it didn't survive, but it was kind of the center of knowledge at some point.
Smart of him to name it after himself then, you know?
Yeah.
Center of knowledge is Alexandria. Cool.
Yeah.
What do you think is the most important invention of the 21st century, excluding the internet?
Oh.
Because I mean that's an easy one, you know, like it's there now, you know, it's not that new anymore. And it didn't really happen in the 21st century, you know. I mean, it was, but I think.
But the adoption of it was mostly in the 21st century.
It was like in the late 90s, you know.
Yeah. Can I say smartphones, or is that cheating?
No. You can say whatever that you want. There's no right answer.
I'll say smartphones. Reason being is that it changed how we as humans deal with anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, everyone is glued to their phones. In order to go anywhere, you need, navigation. In order to connect with friends, you need to text or call them. In order to figure out where you want to eat, you're going to Google it on your phone. Your phone is basically your second brain almost. You rely on it for everything. And it changed how we as humans do anything. So before your work, you'd be in the office, you have your work, you leave, that's it. But now you're sending emails while you're in transit, you're sending emails when you're at home, all through your phone. So that's for work. If you're traveling, for instance, before you used to, just explore, enjoy the view. And if you have a camera, great, you're going to take photos. But now you take photos, post them on social media. It just changed the way that we as humans interact with one another and just go about our daily lives.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, like you said, overall, whether it's in terms of like I'm lost without my Google Maps.
Yeah.
I want to get somewhere, Google Maps is there. I want to connect with someone. Like we're always connected,
Exactly.
I mean, there's some things that are good about that and some things that are bad. Obviously, pros and cons with everything. But you're right in the sense that smartphones definitely created a dent in human civilization, like in the way that we actually interact. We're like cyborgs now, we have these things on us all the time, always connected.
Exactly.
Cool. So what about the future excites you?
The possibility of what the future will bring, whatever it is. Because if you were to ask someone in the 50s, where do you think we'll be in 2020, right? Chances are they wouldn't imagine that the way of doing things would be completely different. They probably wouldn't imagine the internet. They probably wouldn't imagine smartphones. They probably wouldn't imagine, that people can travel, not in 2020, 2019, but people can travel very easily, right?
Yeah.
Or that people can connect and have a video chat like this one, right? So I guess it's the possibility of what the future can bring and just kind of the optimism that it also brings.
Okay, and what do you think the future of humans is gonna look like? Do you think we're, gonna stay humans, or are we gonna turn into like half human, half robot?
That's part of the possibility, Reza.
Yeah, part of the possibility. Okay.
Part of the possibility.
Do you have any questions for me?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
One question, kind of two parts, but what did you have a turning point in your life, and why was that a turning point?
I would say the turning point in my life was when I tried psychedelics for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and the the things that I saw and what it exposed to me
Mm-hmm.
in a positive way, obviously
Right.
not a negative way.
Yeah.
It it helped me prioritize what matters and what doesn't, and
Right.
the fact that it sounds cliche, but it's really not. The fact that we are gonna die at some point, and
Mm.
no one knows when that point is gonna be. And after we die, there's gonna be very few people who remember us. And
Yep.
as time passes, all the people that we know as well, no one
Mm-hmm.
is really gonna remember them or the
Right.
mistakes they made or whatever, right? But the main thing
Right.
that matters is the energy that they put onto this earth, the things that they left behind for the better. So
Right.
that helped me um, think things through. And obviously, I'm not there 100% yet, because I'm
Yeah.
still a person who has insecurities, who has flaws, who is self-conscious. But that did help me at least a little bit elevate over this and be able
Mm-hmm.
to focus on things outside of myself as well, and not be
Right.
so self-conscious,
Right.
put
Right.
that
Right.
energy outside and make sure that I'm connecting with people. So I guess that
Right.
was one turning point. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Wow.
Yeah. Anyways, Haya,
Mm-hmm.
this was the end of the 11 questions. I want
Perfect.
to thank you for coming on. It's good to see you.
Good to see you
And
as well.
yeah, appreciate it.
Perfect. Okay.
All right. Take care, Haya.